Oh my god, this show is everything. I am so in love with this show right now. So episode 6 of Ahsoka has dropped on Disney Plus, and so of course now I talk about it with all the big time spoilers here. So huge spoiler warning, if you have not watched this 6th episode of Ahsoka yet and you plan on it, don't watch this video because I will be talking about what happens in it. If you have seen it or you don't care, you know the drill, you can stick around. Alright, disclaimer is done, here we go! So I do want to talk about the beginning of this episode, the first scene, for a few different reasons. A, it's the only scene that Ahsoka and Huyang are in this episode, which does solidify this show as not only Ahsoka's show, but also Sabine's show as well. It is as much Sabine's show as Ahsoka's, because this episode mostly revolves around Sabine. And the baddies, to be fair. And B, the second reason, is obviously the Easter egg fan service that we get. So last we left off, Ahsoka and Huyang, they're in that ship, they're in the Purrgil, they're on their way, hopefully, and now we know, yes, they are. And the two of them, they're talking about stories, cause like we've heard Baylan Skoll say throughout the whole show, this distant galaxy has been the subject of folklore and fairy tales for the Jedi. And so Ahsoka's like, hey, Huyang, you have those stories stored in your archive memory. You can tell me one of those. And so Huyang starts with the words, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. I was like, oh my god. Yeah, if ever those words were uttered out loud in Star Wars, that would be the perfect context for them. They are the intro to those old folk tales like the movies are folk tales to us. My friend pointed that out to me. I was like, whoa, that is fucking awesome. Yeah, I love that. It's just so pure, just Star Wars love. That's what it is. And thus concludes the only scene we have with Ahsoka in this episode. We spend the rest of this episode with Sabine and the baddies. Morgan Elsbeth, Baylan Skoll, and Shin Hati. That's how you say her name. Which makes a lot more sense than Hati. Yeah. And so the baddies come out of hyperspace and we are there. We arrive at the planet Peridia. And I was like, holy shit, alright, we're here now. This other galaxy could feel like anything, but luckily it does still feel like a Star Wars-ish planet. Which honestly, I'm not gonna lie, made me breathe a sigh of relief. Good, they didn't throw something in from out of left field. They didn't change it up too much. Still feels like Star Wars, good. And we learned that this planet is the ancient home of the people of Dathomir. So yeah, this planet Peridia is where Ezra and Thrawn have been all these years. And now we know that. And so we land on this planet and we come across, surprise, surprise, some Night Sisters. Yeah, I recognized them pretty much instantly. I was like, holy crap. Yeah, Night Sisters from the Clone Wars animation. Not to mention the Star Wars Jedi games because I love Marin. But the way they talk, yeah, they sound like Night Sisters from the Clone Wars animation. Was not expecting to see them. And they're talking with Morgan Elsbeth, all formal like, cause they're awesome. But I was like, alright, so where's the Star Destroyer? Cause we remember from the Star Wars Rebels finale, that's what Ezra and Thrawn vanished in. We remember the Purrgils, they surrounded themselves around the Star Destroyer and they vanished into hyperspace. And sure enough, in comes the giant Star Destroyer and I was like, holy shit, that is it. That's the Chimera. We see the damage that the Purrgils left on it and we're like, yeah, that is the Star Destroyer that Ezra and Thrawn vanished in. And so then you assess, you're like, holy shit, we're about to see Thrawn. And yup, out he comes. This is our introduction to our live-action Grand Admiral Thrawn, played by Lars Mikkelsen, who voiced him in Star Wars Rebels. And I mean, holy shit, dude. I love that casting. Lars Mikkelsen was always a great choice for Thrawn. I mean, his live-action look did take some getting used to cause his hair. Like, he does look more human here than he did in Rebels, but then again, it's animation versus live-action. That's not really fair, you know? But he does still have that presence that Thrawn had, and he speaks in that same way where you're like, holy god. He owns every scene he's in. Cause he comes out all like, what started off as a dream has now become a frightening reality for those who oppose us. And I was like, Grand Admiral Thrawn, there he is in the flesh. I love that. They got the same actor who voiced him in Rebels, like they did with Katie Sackhoff and Bo-Katan. Just when it works, you know? It's perfect. And I can't wait to see more of what Thrawn does for the rest of the show. Cause really all he did in this episode was talk. Granted, that is mostly what Thrawn is known for doing, his presence and his brilliance, but you just know the best is yet to come. And he has his talk with Sabine Wren, where he pretty much does decide to let her go because I love this about him, he is respectful of his opponents. Because he's pretty much like, yeah, I'll let you go, I'll end up beating you anyway, so it doesn't matter. He's that confident in himself, I guess. And so Sabine is let go to search the planet for Ezra Bridger. Then comes the elongation of this episode with the wait. Because you know that's what this was. You know, they're teasing us. They know we want to see Ezra as much as Sabine does, or at least I did. So they drew out the episode for time. Sabine is searching out there, and I was just like, come on, let's just find Ezra already. What? Why are we waiting? I was getting impatient because we saw Thrawn. That was awesome. Now where's Ezra? That's who I really want to see. And I know they're going to save that for the end like they did with Anakin a couple weeks ago, but let's just get there already. Yeah, it's like I was acting half my age. That's what this show does to me, man. That's how good it is. It makes me giddy. Eventually, we come across these rock lobsters.
Rock lobster?
And yeah, I'll be honest, the rock lobster people leading us to where Ezra Bridger is totally reminded me of Star Wars The Last Jedi, where Luke was in exile and there were porgs all around. I do appreciate the fact that these rock lobster people were not made for merchandise's sake, like the porgs were, because there's nothing really cute or merchandisable about these rock lobster people at all. Then again, if you ask me, the porgs aren't cute either. But you get my point. I will say though, if I'm gonna sidetrack for a second, Ray Stevenson was particularly good in this episode. His scenes as Balin Skull with Shin Hati, where he's talking and he's reflecting on his past as a Jedi, I gotta say, he's actually really good in this show, just in general. Cause he's the kind of villain who he regrets that he has to be a villain. You know, he just sees what he's doing as a necessary evil. Like, I don't want to have to do this, but it is the best course of action. So I have to be a douche right now. I like that. That's not something we're really used to with Star Wars villains. And I think that's pretty cool. So I gotta give all sorts of props to the late Ray Stevenson in the show. Man, just gone way too soon. He was a great actor. Alright, so back with Sabine. This is it, folks. We get to the little village of the rock lobster people, and then we hear a voice say, I knew I could count on you. And I stood up, I was like, Ezra! It's him! Folks, after 5 years, we have found Ezra Bridger! We did it! Woohoo! Or at least, 5 years for those of you who watched the Rebels finale when it aired, which I will say I am not among that crowd. For me, it's been more like 2 or 3 years, but it's still been years. So yeah, after years, we have found Ezra Bridger. The resolution, the open end that Star Wars Rebels left off has now been resolved. That is years of waiting now come to an end. Cause we did it, we found him. Dude, oh my god. Star Wars Rebels fans rejoice today. Celebrate, throw a party, sing the Yub Yub song. That's how I felt anyway, and Sabine felt the same way. Cause that smile on her face says it all. And I mean, they go in for a hug and I was like, I am so feeling this right now. Although I will say, like, that actor with the beard, I mean, sure, it makes sense that Ezra would have a beard after being in exile for a few years. So kind of like with Sabine with the long hair, I was like, is that Ezra Bridger? I don't know if that's really Ezra. I'm sure if/when he shaves that beard off, I'll be like, yep, alright, there's the Ezra we know and love. Hopefully before this season is over. But then he does say, I can't wait to go home. And yeah, I imagine he will get home to the main galaxy somehow. But Sabine is like, yeah, about that. I actually came here as a prisoner with some Imperial baddies and Thrawn, and yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a challenge to get back home from here. The last scene in this episode is the Night Sisters telling Thrawn that there is another on their way. It's Ahsoka Tano. Yeah, she's coming on the Purrgil, which again, good. We're not gonna waste any time in some other place with the filler like I feared last week. Now, Ahsoka and Hu Yang, they're on their way here, and some shit's gonna go down. I can't wait, dude. This show is delivering everything I wanted it to deliver to me. Cause now we have found Thrawn, we've found Ezra. Now they just need to come back home. I can just imagine in the finale, Ezra comes home and reunites with Hera and Chopper and Zeb will show up for a cameo. I really hope that happens. I guess we'll see. But for now, Ahsoka, Part 6, Far, Far Away. Have you watched it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And what are your theories and predictions for the last 2 episodes? Holy shit. Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!